I love you tiny and big, she said with 3-year-old seductiveness as she mimicked her phrase with 2 pinched fingers for tiny and outspread arms for big. That about covered it for her. Sometimes she couldn't love me big because she was overcoming a timeout, but she still loved me tiny. Now it had become a game. I would imitate her, hesitating between tiny and big, then watch her anticipation and satisfaction as I completed her favorite phrase. I love you tiny and big. I don't remember ever telling my parents I loved them so freely as I grew up. I don't remember being told often. We knew it, yet rarely said it. The few times we did, the expressions swelled between us, tense, embarrassed, urgent. My girls changed this. My mom can tell them easily and unencumbered by tension, I love you. I have noticed, however, that my 3-year-old never tells her grandmother, I love you tiny and big. No, for her Mama Nick, my daughter stretches her arms apart as far as possible. Even her facial muscles try to follow her hands, and tells my mom, I love you this much. Big, only big. I wrote this 23 years and a dozen computers ago. My girls were joined by a baby brother less than a year later, and now I'm a seasoned mom of 3 adults. Through the mad rush of those mama years, I managed to save this snippet from my youthful, unseasoned motherhood, thanks to the nearly obsolete floppy disk. What about that young mom who scribbled her thoughts on a floppy disk? She had no idea how to be a mother. She wanted to be a writer. Is she still there? Or is she obsolete like the floppy disk? Did motherhood take the right out of her? I confess, the fear that part of me stayed behind, lost on a broken computer, gurgles through my mind from time to time. That young mom didn't realize how peaceful and simple those first few years were, how suddenly the energy would shift to work, carpools, soccer games, choir, volleyball, matches, piano lessons, and swim meets. Write a novel? Who was I kidding? I needed 2 to 3 years to read the novel on my nightstand. I wish I had written more as the children grew up. When the experiences with them were fresh, I'd have snippets like snapshots of rearing children, like the day my son was born, and how my second daughter refused to look at him or speak to me, about how several months later she would sit next to him and wait until she thought I wasn't looking to steal his pacifier, take a few nom-noms, and stick it back in his mouth. Or about their last bath together, when they were 3 and 1. She pointed at her brother, who was twirling his finger in his belly button. I want one of those, she said. You have a belly button, I said, tickling hers. No, she retorted, one of those, pointing lower. The humor and tenderness of mama journeys are often overshadowed by difficulties. The broken leg, the tantrums and timeouts, the dislocated elbow, the first heartbreak, the science fair nightmares, the lost jacket, the stolen computers, the stolen car, the lost phone, let's face it, the lost and stolen just about everything. I wish I had captured more on a floppy disk of those tiny and big moments in between the difficult ones. The nest is empty now. I barely blinked. I would say I raised my children well, but that's not the whole story. The learning was reciprocal. My children taught and continue to teach me tiny and big lessons, lessons about their youthful world, lessons about myself. Listening to my heart was one of the biggest lessons. I listened to my heart and started writing again. Last year, I wrote a blog post for Mother's Day. It started like this. I didn't plan to be a mom. For the first quarter century of my life, I boasted I'd never marry and I would never have children. I would travel the world. I would be a nomadic wordsmith. Yet here I am, mother of 3 adult children. Where did I go wrong? I didn't. As I circle the empty nest and back to that writer in me, I understand I truly didn't go wrong. A tiny twist, a big detour, yes and yes. But I love everything about the journey. My tiny my tiny travel companions, I especially love them. I love them so big, only big.